A few weeks ago, DC Studios gave some huge updates on their current animated series slate, including announcing shows for characters like the Joker, Crypto, and some guy named Batman. Damn, they really just be giving anyone a show nowadays. Well, almost anyone. But with all of those announcements, it got me thinking, who else deserves an animated series in the DCU? It's the perfect medium to adapt characters that might be difficult to do in live action and bring their stories to life in a new, accessible way, or to go in a completely different direction and reinvent them with a fresh take that will stand the test of time. DC especially is famous for their animated shows, practically raising entire generations on Batman the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, and the Batman Tarzan Adventure Hour, 3 shows of equal importance that acted as gateway drugs for the larger DC universe, and they need to be making more of them. Ideally about less Batman characters too, so here are some fresh ideas for Jimmy Pistol to take free of charge to expand the DCU in new, exciting ways. For starters, can we make a goddamn Wonder Woman show already? To give Gunn his credit, he did say he was working on getting an animated Wonder Woman show made. Unfortunately, he said that over 3 years ago, and there's been no movement since then. What are we waiting for, man? This should be a priority. It's insane to me that in her 85-year history, Wonder Woman has never had an animated series of her own. Hell, the last time she had a show in general was on September 11th, 1979. And in the years since then, pretty much everyone and their mother has had a series besides her for some reason. Crypto's greedy ass had his first of 2 shows, the Batmobile got a series that is currently running, and Kite Man. Kite Man got his own show before the Wonder Woman, which is somehow more offensive than a car because at least the Batmobile isn't only relevant as a punchline. Despite her popularity and enduring importance, DC is so scared to pull the trigger on giving Wonder Woman the animated series she deserves, and it is high time that changed. It doesn't even have to be set in the DCU. As much as we desperately need more Wonder Woman, she just needs a show to finally break this curse. Throughout all of my excruciating experience online, I've come to learn that nobody knows what the hell they're talking about when it comes to Wonder Woman because of how most adaptations only feature her in supporting roles that don't properly flesh her out, or how her solo stuff could have some pretty iffy characterization, or the vicious character assassination that was Injustice, so now everyone has their own unique idea of what Wonder Woman should stand for. One complaint I really hate seeing is when people say Wonder Woman has no good villains. No, you don't mean that. You don't know what you're talking about. She just doesn't have as many popular villains outside of characters like Cheetah and Cersei because you haven't seen them time and time again in dozens of animated series like Batman has. All I'm asking for is for her to finally get a chance to shine in a long-running series that exposes more people to her history. Come on, guys, it's the least you can do after canceling the game, something I will never forgive you for, but at least an animated series would make it easier to handle. If Batman can have a new adaptation every single year since the Flintstones ate that asteroid, then Wonder Woman can get one animated show. She's been missing out on a definitive adaptation that actually shows people how cool Wonder Woman is supposed to be, so that is exactly what this show needs to represent. Something akin to her own task that will define Wonder Woman for a whole new generation. Introduce audiences into her world and let them fall in love with her story in the same way I did. So here's 3 separate pitches for how to do it. I'm not giving them any excuses. Here's what you gotta do. The big announcement coming out of the Annecy International Animation Film Festival, with that long-ass name, was that we're gonna be getting an Absolute Batman series, which is incredibly exciting. But why stop there? The Absolute Universe recently had its first crossover when Batman and Wonder Woman teamed up, so let's introduce her in that show and then immediately get to work on giving her a spin-off of her own after that. This comes from a place of love, I swear, but to me, Absolute Wonder Woman is better than Absolute Batman, and people need to experience that level of peak. Animation is the perfect medium to give us that kind of Elseworlds story that would bring Hayden Sherman's gorgeous art to life. But if that's too long of a wait for you, how about we get My Adventures with Wonder Woman? My Adventures with Superman is one of my all-time favorite animated shows already, and with a Green Lantern spin-off on the way, let's keep that going. Wonder Woman would be perfect for this bright and hopeful universe that reimagines these characters with beautifully stylized anime influence. It's exactly the kind of show that would get more eyes than ever on her and explore her world under this new, more approachable lens as they reinvent her under this anime aesthetic. Let's say that doesn't interest you though. You're crazy, but if you want to see something more traditional, how about we just get a straight-up Wonder Woman cartoon? One that does Wonder Woman in her normal kick-ass way. Is that such an insane idea? Kick things off with the George Perez Wonder Woman comics and work your way through all of her most exciting stories. Just skip everything involving Tom King and the New 52 for my own sanity. Even something that straightforward would feel fresh and exciting considering what we've been stuck with lately. More than anything, I just want to see classic Wonder Woman stories brought to life as we dive into her surprisingly deep rogues gallery in stories that are still politically relevant today. There is still so much untapped potential in a Wonder Woman series that brings her fascinating lore to life as Greek mythology meets modern diplomacy. I'm never gonna stop advocating for this for as long as I live, so if James wants to shut me up, he's either gotta kill me or announce the show already. The people yearn for a Wonder Woman animated series. Okay, let's move away from Wonder Woman now before I start spiraling again. The next character who deserves an animated series is actually someone who's had one before, that being Plastic Man. Yeah, back in 1979, they had the Plastic Man Comedy Adventure Show. It ran for 2 seasons, had this horrifying live-action segment, and isn't ever really talked about. Still, I really think Plastic Man is the perfect character for a proper animated series that can explore the full range of his powers. He's one of those characters who feels tailor-made for the medium considering his power set and the very silly tone he loves to inhabit. Stretching is a very tough thing to consistently pull off in live action. Sometimes it looks great, others not so much. Good stretching effects can be very costly, and even then, it's a gamble on whether or not it's going to fall into the uncanny valley as they try to make the impossible tangible. But here's the thing. Animation completely circumvents that issue as it's more about having time than money. Unless you are free from the constraint of realism and able to just go dummy crazy with it. The only limitation in animation is your imagination, that's a bar, and that's where Plastic Man thrives. He's the kind of guy to shapeshift into literally anything you can imagine, from a cube, to a giant head to eat his teammates, to Big Barda's dress to be a pervert. Okay, that's not great, but he's done it all. Imagine an animated series inspired by his ingenuity that gives us Plastic Man changing into insane things every single episode. I want this show to really stretch those limitations and see what's possible as he does mind-bending stuff in the stupidest situations possible. Oh yeah, it's probably important for this show to have a plot, isn't it? Well, fun fact, Plastic Man is actually a character who predates DC as a whole, so we have a lot of history to pull from. Patrick O'Brien was a small-time criminal known as Eel O'Brien, and not to victim blame, but when that's your name, you're kind of asking for a tragic origin story, right? In his case, he classically got exposed to some mysterious chemicals, and the rest was history. Actually, he did try to kill himself first, but then he became the hero known as Plastic Man because the news misheard him saying he wanted to be called Elastic Man, which is the most Plastic Man thing I've ever heard. He is such a silly character that this kind of comedy series would be a joy to watch, and then cut deep when you dive into all that stretchy baggage he's carrying around. With Plastic Man, you could very easily make a show starting from the beginning and working your way to the modern age, and I'm sure that would be great. But there's actually one specific story I'd love to see. Kyle Baker's defining run on Plastic Man kicks off with a story that has him tasked with hunting down his own past criminal identity, Eel O'Brien. It's a lot of fun and exactly the kind of sitcom-esque scenarios this show should be adapting. And it ties everything into a retelling of his origin, so you're not going to alienate any new viewers. It would be a really great way to bring him into the universe in a story that is fresh and exciting, all while establishing the tone his character is famous for. Plus, once he's firmly established in the DCU, it means we're one step closer to getting the Terrifics, something that might actually happen now that Mr. Terrific is getting his own show. Ideally, that project would be in live action, but it's not my job to figure out how that works, so let's just go to the next one. There's a lot of build up to this one, but I promise you that by the end, I will have won you over, and if not, you can have my liver. One of the most exciting things about the DCU to me is Gunn's approach when it comes to the timeline. When first announcing the DCU behind closed doors to a bunch of journalists, he explained that their approach is going to be less like Marvel and more like Star Wars. Now, on the surface, looking at modern Star Wars outside of Andor, that's a terrifying thought. But what that really means is that unlike Marvel, where every movie and show, besides Black Widow, progresses the universe forward linearly and in real time, the DCU is going to take the Star Wars approach of breaking things off into different eras. By the time the 2025 Superman movie takes place, there have already been decades of history, dozens of incredibly well-known heroes like Atomic Knight and, Dan the Dynamite, whoever that is. But my point is that the DCU isn't withheld to one fixed point in time to tell stories about. There is a wide range of variety that comes with projects told in the past, or in our case here, the future, because I want to see the Legion of Superheroes get their own animated series. There is so much you can do with the Legion that it feels like they are just itching to be animated. I genuinely cannot believe it hasn't been done yet. What's that? They already did one in 2006 that I completely forgot about when writing this video? Oh shit, they did. well, this one would be different because it'll be part of a cinematic universe and it'll be a better show. What matters most is that the Legion rock. I don't think they will ever get the appreciation they deserve as a concept just because of how ridiculously convoluted their history is. Seriously, just scroll through their wiki page and look at how many people have been on this team. It would be easier to say who hasn't been a Legionnaire. I'm pretty sure I've been one at one point. That's still going? Good lord, man. For the uninformed, the Legion of Superheroes is, believe it or not, a superhero team that comes from the distant future of the 30th and 31st century formed to protect the United Planets from all sorts of crime. And not just any superhero team, but the only superhero team of their time. The kicker is that they are made up entirely of teenagers, with each member coming from a different planet and having mastered a very specific superpower. Also, they all do get a flight ring, but the appeal is mostly the variety of insane powers for kids to enjoy. You got people like Lightning Lad, who has complete control over electricity, Saturn Girl, who has powerful telepathic abilities, and of course, Matter Eater Lad, a guy whose entire power is that he can eat literally anything. He's just like me, for real. It's this big, sprawling soap opera set against the backdrop of an ever-changing future that is just a ton of campy fun. Basically comic books at their most comic booky, as the Legion embrace the sci-fi genre to its fullest extent. But even then, there is this beautiful simplicity to the Legion that makes them so comforting. If you don't see the potential in an animated series like that, then I fear you might just lack ball knowledge, but that's okay. I'm here to help coach you on why it works so well. The Legion is a concept you can only really pull off in animation. I would love for someone to try and prove me wrong, but I don't think there's anyone who has the courage to try and pull off the absurd things these comics do. In animation, you don't have to worry about trying to make something insane practical. You can just go wild with it, and that is the environment the Legion flourish in. Plus, with a series that takes place 1,000 years into the future, it allows animators to do things they never could in the modern day to create a world we've never seen before. They're basically a team designed to let your animation team flex their talents with a gorgeous aesthetic that does the characters more justice than the Silver Age ever could. Another thing about the Legion is that they love to travel through time. It honestly feels like they may die if they spend more than 5 minutes in the 30th century with how often they do it. That means you can effectively use this show to flesh out every era of the DCU, with the Legion popping up in different points in time to do some world building. And with how heavily inspired the team is by Superboy, it could be cool to let us see some early day stuff with David Clark back in Smallville. There is so much potential for this to be a really fun, time-sprawling show that somebody just needs to capitalize on again. You know what, I'm still really embarrassed I forgot that other show existed, so let's talk about somebody who's never had one before. It's about time that the Martian Manhunter finally got his own animated series. It's honestly long overdue for him to get literally anything, because there has never been a solo Martian Manhunter project before. I know, that's crazy, right? To put that into perspective for you, he is the only founding member of the Justice League to never get their own adaptation. He is such a cool character, but for one reason or another, DC doesn't really know what to do with him. At most, he gets a supporting role in somebody else's story or makes a cameo appearance, but he is so much more than that and could easily carry an animated series of his own given the opportunity. Frankly, I've grown impatient waiting for Martian Manhunter to get the respect he deserves, so this is a warning to DC Studios. I need you to give him an animated series for the following reasons. I'm so desperate, man. Please make it happen. With all the themes of isolation the DCU has been dealing with lately, I couldn't imagine a more fitting character to join the universe than the Martian Manhunter in a series that definitely should be animated. Unless Martians decide to grace humanity with their presence anytime soon, and let's be honest, this is the last place in the universe anyone would want to be, a character like Martian Manhunter is going to be very effects heavy. Whether you try to do it practically or bring him to life through CGI, it's gonna be expensive. Supergirl already did a great job showing us that. I really don't want to compromise him being in his Martian form as much as possible because of the cost. While I'm sure that a movie or show with a bigger budget would be able to pull that off, I would argue that you may as well just give him an animated series to not have to worry about any of that. It also means you don't have to hold back and can go as far as you want to explore his time on Mars with fully rendered and beautifully stylized visuals. Look at how breathtaking this environment is. Sure, live action can come close to making that work, but animation is the place to embody these bright, vibrant colors and extremely distinct visuals. I know Jon Jones is most famous for being stranded on Earth, but his stories can get very planetary, so I'd love a medium that is able to do all of that justice. Even if you don't go that far, he's a character who just fits best into projects that can have unrealistic art styles to complement his design and absurd shape-shifting powers. All of the space stuff surrounding his character is great and a fundamental part of him, but the aspect of Martian Manhunter I enjoy most is Jon Jones the Investigator. I'm proposing that this animated series would be structured in a case-of-the-week format as we see Jon unravel a larger mystery. You could definitely definitely have that involve white Martians or other Martians, but for a character who is supposed to be the last surviving member of his race, they seem to do that a lot to the point where it feels overused as a villain trope for him. Personally, I would love to see him thrust into something completely different. Imagine it turns out that this case has something to do with the demon Etrigan. That would fill me with glee, man. And they did fight once in the comics, meaning there is precedent for it, so don't lose your temper or throw a fit. Etrigan made me start rhyming, didn't he? Well, I can't keep this up for the rest of the video. I need to break free of this curse. Oh god, that was a lot harder than I expected. Pitting him up against a morally gray anti-hero like Etrigan would be a really fun recipe to test Jean's moral compass as he's acclimating to humanity. What I love most about Jean inhabiting this hard-boiled detective noir story is how it works as a direct foil to his entire character. Having a guy who's not from Earth solve cases is the most interesting thing ever. Watching him try to fit in, learn about the world and what it means to be human as he effectively needs to solve mankind to solve his cases is such a slam dunk narrative structure and character arc. Come on, that sounds like peak to me. I cannot believe this hasn't happened already. For real this time, right? Okay, good. Also, one last note, because I didn't want this video to just turn into me suggesting every Absolute book should be animated now that the floodgates are open, but I really wouldn't mind an Absolute Martian Manhunter animated series as well, especially now that it ended and solidified itself as one of my favorite comics of the last decade. This gorgeous psychedelic art style could only work in animation, so please just consider it. I will give you whatever organ of mine you want. I will do anything to make this happen, James. Anything. Okay, on a much less desperate note, there's still time left in the video, which means there's another character to discuss. I know it's only been 1 year, but if there's any aspect of the DCU they haven't touched on enough, it's magic. That wouldn't necessarily be a problem if we had a supernatural character announced for their own project, but considering that the most recent news we've had on Swamp Thing was its announcement, the closest thing we have to that is the Jimmy Olsen show, so we should probably fix that. If it were up to me, we would have had a Dr. Fate animated series halfway through production by now. On the whole, anytime magic is involved, the character is usually best suited for animation. Unlike Constantine, who I think benefits from the grittiness and tactility of real life considering how bleak his stories can get, Dr. Fate is so out there that animation just fits him. Sure, it would be surreal to see how he'd be able to bend a realistic reality, but animation allows for so much more genre-bending stuff that it makes too much sense to not give Dr. Fate an animated series. I feel like I'm just gonna start repeating myself with all of these points about how you aren't really restrained by realism in animation, so I'm just gonna assume you get my point by now and move on to talk about what this kind of show would be about. One of the coolest things about Dr. Fate is that he's pretty much DC's longest running legacy character. Obviously, there's Kent Nelson, the primary Dr. Fate who is fighting alongside the Justice Society of America. He made the mantle famous as an agent of the Lords of Order, working at the behest of the ancient deity Nabu who guides him as a mentor. But there have been so many other people to don that gorgeous golden helmet that I completely lost track of, so here they all are. Oh god, I forgot about this next bit. Let's see if I can do it all in one breath. Besides Kent Nelson, you had Eric and Linda Strauss, two people who had to combine to become Dr. Fate, Kent's wife Inza Kramer after a resurrection, Jared Stevens, an art thief who stole the helmet, Hector Hall, yes, the son of Hawkman who was born without a soul, Kent V. Nelson, the direct descendant of Kent Nelson, Khalid Ben Hassan who took over during the New 52 on Earth 2, Constantine that one time, and Khalid Nasor, the newest Dr. Fate who wears this hoodie. I think that's all of them, but we can't rule out DC crowning a new one while I was writing this video. The reason I waste your time recapping all of Dr. Fate's history is that I don't want this to be a standard, straightforward Dr. Fate show. This character has way too much of a rich history to only limit it to one person using the helmet, so I'm suggesting a Dr. Fate anthology series. This way we can continue to explore every era of the DCU in new and exciting ways as we track this helmet throughout time, following a different Dr. Fate for each episode. The superhero genre is severely lacking in anthology shows, but Dr. Fate is the antidote to that problem as the perfect character to span decades with unique, magical adventures. Whether it be Kent Nelson in the distant past, exploring his time with the JSA, or seeing what his grandnephew does in the present day, there is a lot of wiggle room there that I find extremely exciting. Plus, Dr. Fate has the unique ability to see into the future, which I think can be used in a really cool way to give this anthology series some connectivity if you'd like. Have it so Kent Nelson is tortured by visions of a potential future that only his predecessors can solve. Or maybe he gets visions in one episode that come true in future episodes where he returns. There is a really fun way you can play around with his power that uses this medium to its full potential and allows for Dr. Fate to get the trippy show he deserves. And finally, the last character I think the DCU needs to make an animated series about is Wonder Woman. Again. What, you think I'm gonna be satisfied with just one show? Look at how much of a lead Batman and Superman have. And that's not even counting that greedy f***ing dog who I'm glad got shot, by the way. I fully expect an apology from you, James Francis Gunn Jr., in the form of an entire animated Wonder Woman cinematic universe. If that announcement isn't made in the next 24 hours, I'm strapping a bomb to my chest and I'm going to Sorry about that, my lawyers are advising me to cut that out of the video. While I take a second to calm down, how about you just let me know who you want to see get an animated series in the DCU? I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, I will show up at your house and bomb you instead. I might not be able to use it against Gunn, but I can use it against you, so subscribe or else.